All right, guys. I wouldn't say I'm rested, but I'll say I am rested enough. So I wanted to get back into this because this is the fun part, right? My own authority and where that's at. Um, we'll see how this goes. I'm just gonna tell the story and then I'll edit it in. So this might be one video or it might be two. Uh, Beforehand, uh, just want to say thank you for all. There are so many Prime drivers, including the YouTube ones. I've been trying to kind of shout out the YouTubers that I watched, and like No Hippie Man. I hope you have good luck with the truck. I was feeling for you last night, man. Watching, I mean, I was feeling for you, man. I know how it goes. So, and then Kersey just did a video on Kersey, uh, positive voice in trucking. She just did a video talking about winter stuff, and yeah, she's definitely one of the people I watched along the way. Some other people I haven't really done an official shout out with a link yet. Maybe I'll do that here, but Richie Rich, I really appreciate you too, man. You're one of those keep it real guys. Tim Travels, I've mentioned a couple times. Want to shout him out again. Eric at Driver Lineup, Driveline. I'm sorry, I'm a dick. I need to write that down before I do that. But I actually, the day I got um, my CDL, I was talking to you in the Springfield terminal. You had a student you were testing out that day. So never forgot that. It was cool talking to you, man. And I love watching your journey. Um, but and on January 27th, it would be 3 years that I have had my CDL with Prime. Uh, in October, uh, I mean, I knew I wanted to go to my own authority, but decisions that were being made made it very clear to me that I wanted to have my own authority by the end of the year. So that is what my goal was. Now, if you move to your own authority, you're going to pay more insurance. It doesn't, I mean, Prime is a gigantic network, right? So their setup for insurance is going to make you pay the least. So knowing that, I wanted to try to kind of ride out being under their own authority until it was definitely time for me to be my own. By October, I felt like enough things had like lined up to where I was going to pull the trigger. My thinking while doing that was that if I do it in October, they say to take about 45 days to switch your authority and get all the paperwork back because it's a you have federal regulation working with state regulation, and depending on those state regulations and depending apparently on what the federal regulations are doing at the time, you have a lot to keep track of, so you need to give yourself time. So in my head I was like, well, I'll start in October. That gives me October, November. By December, I can have everything smoothed out and be good to go by the beginning of the year. So, again, I'm trying to kind of give you what happened for me. I'm not trying to speak at like I'm some kind of place of knowledge. I've been driving for 3 years. Okay, all I'm trying to say is this is what it's like for me, and this is what's happening for me. So, um, so the advice that I would give to myself, we'll put it like that. The advice I would give to myself um, is advice that so many old people probably have already given you. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Um, I understand enough about business and things like that to where I can file my own things. Like when I incorporated, and maybe I'll do a video on that sometime. I feel like a lot of people have really done that. A lot of people have done a lot of these things that they do them so thoroughly and so much better that I would rather point to them in most cases because like I said, I'm just trying to save y'all some headaches. And believe me, I think this is all going to be worth it, but it was a fucking, and continues to be a fucking headache. Okay, look, so in the first place that I feel like I could have went through and changed that, and it would have mitigated the headache of doing this, is doing everything myself. When I looked at the list of things, getting a BOC, getting your UCR, your DOT, your MCL, getting insurance, filing with IFTA, depending on what state, I run through Kentucky, so even if you file through IFTA, you have to also get state registrations. You have to prepare for the audit and clearinghouse. There's a list of things that you got to do. And when I looked at that, while I like to be cheap and do a lot of things myself, I also think there's value in handing something off if you can, because I wanted to focus on running and making money. So I was like, well, I'll just hire somebody to do this. Now, I did file to get my own DOT and NCL because that was a simple enough process. So I did do that. Starting with this, you need to do it yourself. If you do decide to get your DOT and your MCL, it's very easy to do. I think it costs $150, maybe something like $150 or $300. I feel like it's not like I'm making a video and I should have looked this up or something, huh? But it's very easy to do. If somebody wants help doing that, just get a hold of me. I suppose we'll do it that way because I should have had all that in front of me, but I didn't think about it. Like I said, I ain't claiming to be well to knowledge. I'm just trying to be cool, man. Now that's going to take about 10 days to go through that process. The part I'm trying to get to with this point of this process is that the day that your DOT is approved, shit is going to go crazy. You are going to get, I had to turn my ringer off on my phone for the amount, because your safer score, they can look on that. And you have all these headhunters that we're trying to get you to file through them or trying to get you to jump under their own authority so they can nickel and dime you. I literally had to turn my phone ringer off. It was well over 300. It might have been 5. I don't know. It was like every 2 minutes my shit was blowing up. My email, I could barely check my emails because of how many people were getting a hold of me. So I don't know if it's because of all that or because I never done this process before. I want to strongly emphasize you are not going to get an agent from the DOT or anybody like that to reach out to you. And one of the ways I don't fall for a lot of tricks, but I fell for this one, and I want to save some people some time in case. I had this guy named Daniel Keys that wrote me, and he said he was an agent for DOT, and made it sound like once your DOT is authorized, they send an agent to work with you, kind of like a case manager or something. And I did mental health and psychology for a long time, so that seemed in line with a government process for me, is to have something that's along the lines of a case manager or something like that. So that was my thinking. The credentials were close enough to a government website that even though I know you need to look at the .gov, it was enough that in the heat of everything it fooled me, and I said, oh, okay, well, they must do this like a case manager. So I went through this guy. Well, unfortunately, he was a third party, and so I ended up asking these people to do things like my UCR, my BOCs, and all those things. And that ended up being my first nightmare. It wasn't like they were stealing my identity, but I was at the mercy of their timing instead of my own timing. Now, like I said in another video, if you're going to do it, like Charles Bukowski said, man, if you're going to do it, go all the way. And that's how I feel with things. If I'm going to do it, if I'm going to pull the trigger on something, we're going to hit it. Like, it's going to happen. I'm not going to sleep until it happens. And so I had an incredible amount of frustration with the amount of time that they were taking. And that knocked me from having most of my filing done in October when I started into November. And that process was awful. Trying to get contact and movement through these guys were awful. Um, about 2 weeks into the process, I realized I was dealing with a third party and that I wasn't actually dealing with the DOT. 100% looking in the mirror. This world does not give a shit about you. I mean, your family does, your friends do, but this world in general, there's a city commissioner I used to work with in my life before this that would always say, um, when you asked her why she became a city commissioner, she said, "If you are not at the table, you are on the menu," and that is, I feel like, a good analogy for this world. So it's on me that I took it for granted that this might be a DOT agent. So um, if I've never seen that listed anywhere, and that's why I fell for it. So if nothing else, if you do decide to do your own DOT or MCL, there is no agent. They are going to expect you to hire somebody to do it for you, or else you're going to do it yourself. Nobody's going to reach out from you from the DOT. Okay, so if I help one person dodge that bullet, I'll be very grateful. Um, so along with that, so we'll kind of skip the rest of that. That was just bullshit. That's just what happens. So after I got through and figured that out, I have some accounting people. I've dropped them in one video. I'm not gonna name drop them again, because I don't. I still have good business with these people. Now, if you do file in Missouri, again, I know somebody that I can refer you to who does actually do processing and is a legit person. That being said, uh, when this whole process had happened, I at this point I'm on a dedicated route, so I get to pick my own hours. It's all drop and hook, so I'm banging shit out, man. Like I said, if you're gonna do it, go all the way. So I was just like, I don't want to figure out where they stopped and where this started, so I want to go to my accounting firm. So I want to put this asterisk in there that it could be the situation that I put my accounting firm in that made this much harder for them than it normally is. And maybe had I understood what was happening with my situation and I went from them in the beginning, everything would have moved smoothly without a hitch. However, that is not what happened. um, I uh, I ended up only working with them for a couple weeks as well. I felt good about it the first day. They assigned me an agent. It's a smaller business. This person seemed ready to go. She seemed on it, so I felt reassured. One of the things that you have to file for is IFTA, and I'll probably make another video a little bit later, or else somewhere in the middle of this. I'm doing all this on the seat of my pants, man. So I'm not really completely sure how I'll break it down, but at some point I'm gonna clearly talk about the steps. So one of the steps is IFTA. That's something you're gonna file with your state. Um, Now, IFTA will allow an agent, but if you have a processing agent, they have to do some kind of vetting form that you have to send for them. Uh, and after 2 weeks, I ended up deciding to do everything myself because, quite frankly, in the 2 weeks, um, I felt like I was doing much more work to get this person access to my IFTA account than they were. And after 2 weeks, I'm not sure if this was a worker under the person because I'm pretty sure the person that I had was a female and this was a male. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'm catching up on behalf of your accounting firm for doing your information. We need you to fill out a form still for us to be able to get access to IFTA." Now I'm going to tell them exactly what had happened as I'm telling you right now. The day that they told me that, I had filed the form. I followed up the next day and called my um, state, the Secretary of State, because in Michigan at least they are the ones that also control your IRP and IFTA. So I had followed up with the state the very next day. I gave it 24 hours, And then I followed up and called them, made sure everything was clear, made sure they had access, made sure the state of Michigan will give you a PIN. So I made sure that I had the PIN correctly, and then I had emailed within 24 hours. I had emailed that PIN. All the accounting firm agent had to do was call and give them the PIN. 2 weeks later, which means absolutely no movement on processing this, I get a call from who I assume was like a secretary or something of this agent to tell me that I need to do these steps that I had done 2 weeks before. So at that point, this is mid-November, and Prime at the time had a very hard rule about if you were not doing this by the end of the year, then this was going to happen. And I was highly motivated, going in between the lines, as No Hippie says. I was highly motivated to get this done by the end of the year and get things straightened out. So at that point, I messaged them and I said, at this point, I will handle this process myself, and we'll get a hold of you guys about keeping track of IFTA after we go, because it's a ongoing process. Like I said, I'll get through the weeds on that stuff later, or else I might just refer everybody to somebody who really did detailed stuff on that part of it.